royal silence broken. The woman they hid for years. For years, her name was never spoken aloud inside the palace walls. She was a shadow, a whisper, a hidden chapter, deliberately erased from the glittering legacy of Dubai's royal family. But silence, no matter how royal or powerful, eventually cracks, and on one quiet morning, the truth began to slip through the gold-lined corridors, like light piercing a long-shut door. Her name was Alina. She wasn't a queen, nor a royal, nor a woman born into privilege. Her story started far from the shining towers of Dubai, in a small coastal town where the sea taught her to be soft and the storms taught her to be strong. She carried both gifts with her when life unexpectedly pushed her into the path of the crown prince, Sheikh Hamdan. They met long before the world ever suspected, long before cameras followed his every smile, long before royal expectations caged his freedom. Back then, she was just a woman visiting the city for work, armed with nothing but a curious heart and the courage to dream. And he was a prince searching for something real in a world full of rehearsed affection. Their first meeting wasn't grand. It wasn't royal. It wasn't planned. It was destiny. She had dropped a stack of papers outside a bookshop, the wind sending them dancing across the pavement. Before she could react, a man bent beside her, helping her gather them one by one. She thanked him without recognizing who he was. He laughed softly, surprised and secretly relieved. No one had spoken to him like that in years. That moment was the beginning. What followed were months of conversations too meaningful to forget. Midnight talks about freedom, poetry, childhood dreams, and fears he never dared to share with anyone. She never asked him to be a prince. She just asked him to be human. And for that, he gave her the part of his heart he had hidden from the world. But the palace didn't forgive such simplicity. When rumors began spreading that the crown prince was in love with an older woman, someone outside the royal circle, the royal advisors acted quickly, too quickly. Meetings were held behind closed doors. Decisions were made without his consent. And the woman who held his heart was quietly asked to leave Dubai. It wasn't a request. It was an order. For the sake of reputation, for the sake of tradition, for the sake of a future already planned for him. She disappeared without a goodbye, carrying with her the love story that was never allowed to live. He searched for her for months, but every path was blocked. Every clue erased, every trace cleaned by the palace machinery that could hide anything. Even a woman whose only crime was loving a prince too purely. Years passed. The world saw him smile, but never knew the sorrow buried beneath. The palace maintained silence, and Alina became a forgotten page of history. Until now, because on this very morning, a photograph leaked, a blurry but undeniable image of a woman. The palace was not built for surprises, especially not the kind that walked in wearing quiet confidence and carrying a history no one dared to mention. By noon, the leaked photograph had ignited every corner of social media, every newsroom, every whispered conversation between staff members who suddenly remembered her name. Alina. For years it had been forbidden to utter it. Now it echoed across the marble hallways, carried in hushed tones and worried glances. The Royal Communications Office scrambled, but the fire was already spreading. And somewhere inside those gilded walls, One man felt a storm rising inside his chest. The very man they had once kept her away from. Sheikh Hamdan. He was in a strategy meeting when his advisor leaned in and whispered something that made his heart pause. A single sentence. A single name. She has returned. He didn't finish the meeting. He didn't ask for details. He simply stood, ignoring the startled faces around him, and walked out of the room with a calmness that fooled no one. But beneath that calm, years of suppressed emotion erupted. Anger, hope, disbelief, longing. He had convinced himself that she had moved on, that she had built a life far from the golden cage that had pushed her out. Yet the moment he heard she was back, every memory he had buried returned like a tide too strong to resist. Meanwhile, Alina wasn't hiding. She took a quiet suite at a hotel overlooking the marina, not the palace. She knew better than to walk straight into the lion's den, especially when she had no idea whether her return was a mistake or destiny catching up. She stood by the window, watching the city she once loved and once feared. Dubai had changed. She had changed. But one thing hadn't. Her heart still carried him. But she didn't come back for him, not entirely. There was another reason, one she had protected with the same fierce loyalty she once gave their love, a truth the palace had never discovered, a truth she couldn't hide forever. As she unpacked her small suitcase, her fingers paused on a single old photograph, him looking at her. With the kind of love people write poems about, she pressed the picture against her chest, inhaling deeply. "It's time," she whispered. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message, no name, but she knew exactly who it was. Back at the palace, the crown prince stood by his window, staring at the city skyline. His security team had informed him of her hotel location. He didn't ask how they knew. It didn't matter. What mattered was the sudden clarity that washed over him. For years he had obeyed. For years he had sacrificed. For years he had given the world everything, except his truth. But today felt different. Today felt like fate demanding its due. He changed out of his official attire, putting on something simple, something human, and walked past the guards who had no authority to question him. As he stepped into the car, his driver looked at him in silence, understanding the unspoken.